Welcome to Business Time. I am Melisha. Now, I want you to do something for me. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I need you to do so. So, please subscribe, like, and share. Today, we will be looking at the major economic institutions and systems. What POB requires for you to know is the functions, right? So we are going to be looking at the functions of these major economic institutions and system. The first one we will be looking at is the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. 1. It promotes economic integration and cooperation among its members. So everybody in CARICOM is working together. 2. Ensures the benefits of integration are shared equally among member countries. So no one country in CARICOM should be benefiting more than the other. Everybody is on a level playing field. 3. It coordinates foreign policy of members. 4. It creates special projects for the less developed countries in the region. So they look out, for those not as strong as the other countries in the region, and that's good. 5. It handles regional trade disputes. So at least they are able to settle disputes among themselves. The second one is Caribbean Single Market and Economy, CSME. 1. There's free movement of goods and services. What this does is that it allows for goods and services to move freely in the region, and that there is a set agreed standard to be met for goods and services to be traded. All barriers to trade are also removed. Once a country's goods and services meet the required standard, then nothing should stop them, from exporting their goods to other CARICOM countries. 2. Right of establishment. What this means is that permission is given to CARICOM-owned businesses to set up in any member state without restrictions. So once it's a business in a Caribbean country, if they want to set up another branch in another Caribbean country, that should be fine. 3. Free movement of labor. What this does is that it removes all obstacles to intra-regional movement of skills, labor, and travel. So once I have the skill that's required, and any Caribbean country is looking for a worker with such a skill, then it should be that I can also compete with persons within that country to get the job, and may the best person get the job without any bias or favoritism. Good. 4. A common trade policy. What this means is that member countries work together on matters related to internal and international trade. They try to have an external trade policy that is a joint effort by member countries. So everybody, will be saying the same thing. The next one is Caribbean Development Bank, CDB. Its purpose is to encourage and enable development within the Caribbean area by providing funds for development projects. 1. It assists borrowing member countries in optimizing the use of their resources, developing their economies, and expanding production and trade. Right? So it will lend, right, for these countries to develop in whatever area that is necessary. 2. Mobilize financial resources from within and outside the region for development. So wherever it is to get the funds from, it will try to do so because the Caribbean region, needs to be developed. 3. It supports regional and local financial institutions and a regional market for credit and savings. 4. It provides technical assistance to its regional borrowing members. The next one is the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD. The IBRD is the world's largest development bank, and it is also a part of the World Bank. 1. It supports the World Bank in its mission to reduce poverty by providing loans, advisory services, etc. to middle income and credit-worthy low-income countries. 2. It also coordinates responses to regional and global challenges. Now, the World Bank. 1. It provides financial products and technical assistance. 2. Helps countries share and apply innovative knowledge and solutions to the challenges they face. 3. It works with developing countries to reduce poverty and increase shared prosperity. 4. It provides financing, policy advice, and technical assistance to governments. 5. It focuses on strengthening the private sector in developing countries. The International Monetary Fund, IMF. 1. IMF assesses its member countries' economic and financial policies. It identifies potential risks that could cause instability and makes recommendations to sustain economic growth and promote financial and economic stability. 2. IMF assists countries hit by crisis by providing loans to implement adjusted policies to restore economic stability and growth. However, a country's government and the IMF must agree on a program of economic policies before the IMF provides lending to the country. So before they give a country their money, they want to make sure that the country is going to put it to good use. 3. IMF provides technical assistance and training to help countries build effective economic institutions that can implement the right policies. They will provide technical assistance and training to finance ministries, tax authorities, central banks, and other economic institutions. Interestingly, during the pandemic, the IMF has been providing real-time policy advice and capacity development to over 160 countries to address urgent issues such as cash management, financial supervision, cybersecurity, and economic governance. Remember now, a lot of countries are struggling. A lot of lockdown caused the economy to slow down. So of course, IMF would be needed, and they're doing a good job. The World Trade Organization, WTO. The WTO is the only global international organization that deals with the rules of trade between nations. 1. It engages in trade negotiations. The WTO is run by its member governments. All major decisions are made by the membership as a whole, either by ministers or by their ambassadors or delegates who meet regularly in Geneva. They come up with agreements that cover goods, services, and intellectual property. They basically set out the principles that must be followed. They include things like countries' commitments to lower custom tariffs and other trade barriers, procedures for settling disputes. So they basically sit down and work out how best they are going to engage in trading activities. 2, it engages in implementation and monitoring. So what they do is that they ensure governments make their trade policies transparent by notifying the WTO about their trade laws and measures they have implemented. The WTO councils and committees ensure that these requirements are followed and that WTO agreements are being properly implemented. From time to time, all WTO members must undergo scrutiny and their trade policies and practices. So what WTO does is to ensure that all member countries, they abide by the rules. 3, dispute settlement. Countries bring trade disputes they have with other countries if they think their rights under the agreements are being infringed. So if Jamaica has an issue with Trinidad or Canada or any other country, the WTO can come in and try to resolve the issue. 4, building trade capacity. The WTO agreements contain special provision for developing countries, including longer time periods to implement agreements and commitments, measure to increase their trading opportunities, and support to help them build their trade capacity, to handle disputes, and to implement technical standards. And it's fair, developed countries will better be able to implement the agreements set out by the WTO. And so it's good that they give developing countries, some time, to get everything sorted out. Guess what, too? The WTO organizes hundreds of technical cooperation missions to developing countries annually. So they go to these countries and they do help them out. It also holds numerous courses each year in Geneva for government officials. So the WTO is really there and, helping to guide countries, especially developing countries, and that is very good. Organization of American States, OAS. It is the world's oldest regional organization. 1. OAS seeks to strengthen the peace and security of the continent. 2. The OAS provides support to member states in building institutional and human capacity to meet new challenges. For example, they have helped member states to make changes to their electoral systems. They provide training for government officials in areas such as trade negotiations and natural disaster mitigation. 3. They engage in political dialogue. OAS provides a political forum for member countries to come together to advance their common goals and work out their differences. For example, the member states negotiated the Inter-American Democratic Charter, which is a blueprint for what democracy should look like in the region. So they know that they're independent, and once they're a democratic state, they know what it should look like. What are the things that should be happening in the country? 4. They have a follow-up mechanism. The member states hold each other accountable on a range of issues. They evaluate their progress in fighting against illegal drugs, corruption, and domestic violence. That is it for the major economic institutions and systems. Hope you learned something. See you next time.